So we're here in Ford's Theater, and across from me on the right is a presidential box where Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. He was watching a play called Our American Cousin, April 14th, 1865. John Wilkes Booth entered the door with a Derringer, shot Lincoln point blank range. Now, this is called Ford's Theater because John T. Ford was the owner. He hired John Wilkes Booth about 2 or 3 years earlier because Booth was an actor. And Booth was so well known in Ford's Theater, when he came in, he's basically allowed to go anywhere he wanted. No one would think to stop him. And Lincoln had actually seen Booth perform in this theater 2 years earlier before the assassination. So after Booth shot Lincoln, he jumped over the balcony onto the stage and broke his leg, but he still escaped. This is where history took place. Unfortunately, tragically, it's where Lincoln was shot, and across the street he died the next day in the morning.
John Wilkes Booth was a Confederate sympathizer, and originally he and several associates hatched a plot to kidnap the president and take him to Richmond, the Confederate capital. One co-conspirator was assigned to kill Secretary of State William H. Seward, and one was supposed to kill Vice President Andrew Johnson. However, the plot failed. Seward was only wounded, and Johnson's would-be attacker got drunk and lost his nerve. On March 20th, 1865, the day of the planned kidnapping, Abraham Lincoln failed to appear at the spot where Booth and his 6 fellow conspirators lay in wait, foiling their planned abduction. 2 weeks later, Richmond fell to Union forces, and on April 9th, General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. Growing desperate, Booth came up with a plan to assassinate Lincoln to save the Confederacy. Lincoln occupied this private box above the stage with his wife Mary Todd Lincoln, a young Army officer named Henry Rathbone, and Rathbone's fiancée Clara Harris, the daughter of a New York senator. At 10:15, Booth slipped into the box and fired his .44 caliber single-shot Derringer pistol into the back of Lincoln's head. Rathbone immediately rushed at Booth, but was stabbed in the shoulder. Booth then leapt onto the stage and shouted, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus ever to tyrants, the Virginia state motto. At first, the crowd thought the commotion was part of the production, but a scream from the First Lady told them otherwise. Although Booth broke his leg in the fall, he managed to leave the theater and escape from Washington on horseback.
This is the actual presidential box where John Wilkes Booth entered and shot Lincoln point-blank range with his Derringer. His bodyguard had left to a saloon and was not here.
The search for John Wilkes Booth was one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history, with 10,000 federal troops, detectives, and police tracking down the assassin. He was caught 12 days later at a Virginia farm, was shot in the neck by a Union soldier, and died a few hours later.
So after Lincoln was assassinated, in attendance at the theater was a number of doctors. The first doctor to attend to him in Ford's Theater was a 23-year-old doctor. He just got his license 6 weeks earlier. And he actually put his finger inside the wound. And back then, they didn't know as much about sterilization as they do obviously today. So with the help of 2 other doctors, they brought him right across the street to the Petersen House. This was a boarding house. And Lincoln was assassinated, or he was shot on April 14th. He died here on April 15th the next morning. They tried to relieve his blood clots throughout the night, but to no avail. He was too mortally wounded. And we are going to go inside in a few minutes, see the Petersen House, where President Lincoln died. So it's a very small room where Lincoln died. Here is a replica of the bed. I don't think anything in here is actually original, but this is the spot where they brought him and he died the next morning.
During the night and early morning, guards patrolled outside to prevent onlookers from coming inside the house. Lincoln's cabinet members, generals, and various members of Congress were allowed to see the president. Lincoln died in the house on April 15, 1865 at 7:22 a.m. at the age of 56. Individuals in the room when he died included his son Robert Todd Lincoln, Senator Charles Sumner, 3 generals, and Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. After Lincoln died, Vice President Andrew Johnson was then sworn in as the 17th President of the United States of America.